Hello and welcome to a brand new installment of Nintendo News Report for Wednesday, August 2nd, 2017. I'm Alex Coffey, joined today by two people who are regularly or semi-regularly on Nintendo News Report. That is one Donald Terrio.
I'm not necessarily looking for 13 million a year, but I am looking for a new job. So,
are you allowed to tell us? Yeah, me too. Are you allowed to tell us what the story is behind that?
basically, national restructuring basically meant that my position got eliminated. Yeah. I got laid off, essentially.
Yeah, it's that makes two of us in the last few months, which is it's a rough time.
Don't fucking jinx it for me, guys. Shit.
It's it's you're looking at three people who are all too familiar with what it means to be laid off from a position. Yep. Two of which primarily writers for a living, and then one Donald. Which I don't mean in a mean.
That's what Donald? What was your job? I Donald from here and
there. I was basically literally telling people where to go and how to get there for the last couple of years.
The verb to Donald.
Yeah, which is exactly your role on the show Nintendo News Report, I might add. Also joined by director Neil Ronahan.
Hi. It's been like 2 or 3 weeks. Back though.
Yeah.
My dog's being very cute, sleeping right there, but you can't see it.
Is it doing a little one of these?
All right, screw it. We're going on the. Now she's all pissed off, but.
It's so defiant.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird how dogs know when you're taking a picture of them and then they like avoid the camera at all costs?
Yep.
Yeah.
And she doesn't seem that concerned. Now her eyes are shutting again.
Right.
She's a good pup.
Yeah, there's a lot of news that dropped in the last 48 hours, and I thought this was going to be a slow week. Haha, little did I know. Nintendo of America announced the actual pre-order plans for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic Mini on their social media, happening later this month.
Yeah, and this time they actually have plans for pre-orders.
Yeah, in some capacity. Although I'm very curious whether it's going to be telegraphed at all, or whether Amazon's going to say anything the day before, or whether they're just going to drop at 9:45 p.m. Eastern.
Now, for Amazon, it tends to be more like 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific to catch to screw over the Central Time Zone, basically, because they're the ones going home from work at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I suspect we'll probably get some notice from Amazon. I know Target put up their page today. Walmart, I don't think they're making that mistake again, though. They're probably going to wait till the last possible moment before they actually put their page back up.
I heard that Amazon is they're doing it's going to be a weird like cross promotion thing. On September 29th, there's going to be an actual PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds at Amazon buildings across the country. Where they're just going to drop the Super Nintendos from the sky, or the Super Nintendo Classics from the sky, and then they'll film it, and it'll be on the Amazon streaming service. So,
and they're doing.
I mean, I'm really looking forward to the show. David Fincher's involved, so it should be really well shot.
It's what's it called?
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale.
Super Nintendo Royale.
It's watch a bunch of guys die for Star Fox 2.
Yeah. As long as they're all scalpers, I'm perfectly fine with this.
How did you die? Star Fox 2.
I just picture like John Raritan in war paint, just going around being like, I have to get this.
So do John and Justin buddy up at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I'd watch that movie. Like, that sounds real good. John and Justin trying to take down scalpers in Super Nintendo Battle Royale.
Their greatest enemy may just be each other.
There's only one left. Oh no! All the other ones are broken. This is the only Star Fox 2 left. What will happen?
Oh, we know what'll happen. The ROM will get extracted from the system, and it'll be up on the internet by the time they get home.
No, I'm pretty sure the way that ends is one of them kills the other one.
Yeah, so
no doubt.
I'm kind of thinking which one I would bet on, because
I would.
I think Raritan wants it more.
Yeah,
And he's taller, I think.
I think he's got as last Saturday showed. If you have a height and reach advantage, you're going to win 99 times out of 100.
Then I think Barubi might be the better money.
Wait, who's
I will say this: Raritan is a man who carries himself very tall. He's actually very short.
So, but he has a ponytail, which makes him a wild card.
And I think he grows far better facial hair than Barubi.
Yeah.
So.
But that means that Raritan has a lower center of gravity, which could work to his advantage. Yeah. It's are we going to spend the next 20 minutes anticipating a death match between two of our main video people? That's fine.
Or maybe you know what? In the battle of Raritan versus Barubi, I think Jared wins. I don't know how, but he was filming it the whole time.
Jared always wins.
We should talk about something relevant.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, we're talking about pre-orders for the SNES Classic. I hope I can get one. I hope I can pre-order one easily, but I don't want to pay attention to Twitter that constantly in the hopes of getting one.
It's gonna be mayhem. I was at a wedding when the Walmart one went up, and I was ready to do it, and then they all sold out. I checked my phone and was like, "Oh shit!" I'm getting out my credit card, ready to go. And then they'd already sold out, and the page was down. But
that's why I'm glad I've got all my information saved. Although I don't know if I'll be able to use it now. But yeah, just basically, Alex, what I would do: sign up for push notifications from Wario 64.
Yeah, maybe I will do that. I really want it, but as I think about it, I have to decide whether I want these 20 ROMs or I want the $80 instead more, considering I just moved from unemployed to underemployed. So I have to decide how much of my livelihood a SNES Classic is actually worth.
I mean, let's put it this way. Well, first off, I guess this is maybe a discussion to go into later. I'm reasonably confident. Well, I do think that September 29th is going to be a disaster. I think that come November, this will be considerably easier than the NES Classic ever was to find. Also, if you're unemployed or underemployed, if you can spare the $80 and then you still don't have a job when the thing comes out in September, you can easily flip it for probably double at a minimum.
That's true.
This is an investment, boys.
I'd be losing money not to buy one.
Yeah. Pre-order everywhere. No, don't do that. Just pre-order one, or if you have friends and family that also want one, then maybe shell out a different pre-order. That's probably what I'm going to be doing, because I just basically kept an eye out. Whenever NES Classics would go up on Amazon or anything, I just order one because I had a lot of friends and family that were like, "Oh, I'd really like to get one of those." So I just had a list. It's all right, I found one. All right, Rob, you want this? Cool. Okay. And then I'll cross your name out the list, move to the next person.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't get to the point that we have ThinkGeek buying up the entire supply and selling it in those bundles for 3 times the price.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was quite weird. I'm very scared about the concept of being a flipper for a SNES Classic, because I keep thinking back to the people who bulked up on Amiibo and then held on to them for too long.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more of an unknown. Well, I think really, if you're a flipper for the, why are we talking about? I don't want to encourage these people, but you gotta sell your stock ASAP. If you're flipping the SNES Classic, because I think there is a probably 50-50 chance maybe that Nintendo actually won't screw this one up. I've been wrong before, but I would hope to Lord Waluigi himself that Nintendo actually has some idea of how to stock the Super Nintendo Classic to get close to meeting demand. Right. Because they did the exact opposite of that with the NES Classic, and they really got caught with their pants down with that thing.
Sure. I think that's all we can talk about for one little tweet Nintendo sent out.
It wasn't even a tweet, it was a Facebook post.
Yeah.
That's where all the news comes out of Nintendo first. It's always the Facebook.
I mean, I'm really glad that they actually said something. They should have said this at launch. I don't know why. I mean, I guess maybe it's because maybe they didn't have it all locked down with retail partners and stuff. I mean,
yeah, maybe
Walmart.
They didn't know. They might not have known.
And it might have also been maybe the backlash to the Walmart stuff was like, okay, no, we need to all be on the same page with this, and I guess we actually have to have pre-orders. Like, I don't know what the plans were in this case, if like this was the plan from before the thing was announced, or if it just happened in light of the Walmart disaster.
Sure. All right, Persona Q got announced this morning. Persona Q2. It is going to be based on Persona 5. Presumably, it's going to be in the same vein as the previous Persona Q. And it was announced alongside a Persona 3 and a Persona 5 Dancing All Night game, or 2 games that are both coming out spring next year on PS4 and Vita. But we know nothing about Persona Q2 other than it's Persona 5.
And that it's coming to 3DS. Yeah,
and it's coming to 3DS.
Yeah.
I'm hyped for this. I really love Persona 5. As you can, if you dig back into our Patreon archives, you can see a review I did for that. Yeah. And there was and I quite enjoyed the original Persona Q. I would love to see the character interactions that would ensue if this was a P4 and P5 crossover. Because you have an investigation team on one side and a group of Phantom Thieves on the other. But I think they're probably going to... I don't know if they would stick it after the events of P5, or if this would just be a like non-canon, or sort of canon, but not really canon, not really mentioned spin-off thing like the original Q was.
I own Q, and I still haven't played it. But it's been on the top of my 3DS home menu. I was expecting to play it when I got really, really sad that Etrian Odyssey 5 wasn't coming out, but now like that's due out in the fall, so I think I can hold out to get my Etrian on until then.
Well, yeah, but then what are you going to do afterwards? Because it seems like this is probably going to be the last game of its type.
I mean, I don't know. I hope that Etrian Odyssey doesn't just die after the 5th one. Although, like, there was a year where like they had like 3 Etrian games came out in a year. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, because I think it was like
Mystery Dungeon and 4.
I think it was 4. 4 came out in like February, and then Untold came out in fall that year, and then I think Mystery Dungeon.
It's like summer-ish. No.
Mystery Dungeon and Untold 2 came out within months of each other, and I think Persona Q was like the holiday before those 2.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
So not a calendar year, but in a year span, 3 Etrian games came out, or Etrian style games.
My response to you, Donald, asking about the timeline, is to remember when the Persona 4 spin-offs came out, every single one took place confidently after the end of Persona 4 Golden, if I remember right. And in addition to that, I think they would save the fun crossover stuff for whatever fighting game they're probably going to do in 2 to 3 years.
I like how formulaic the like Persona releases have gotten. Like there will be like a Persona 5 Platinum coming out in like 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they'll have the fighting game, and then maybe they'll do another dancing game. I mean,
it's Fire Emblem. It's Fire Emblem now.
Like, I mean, it also it kind of clicked in the same way as Fire Emblem as well, where like you have these 2 series that had been around for a while, and they finally had a release that just clicked with the mainstream more, and then Nintendo and Atlas were just like, keep going. It'll die eventually, but let's just make as much money as we can before it happens.
Yeah. It's funny because Awakening for Fire Emblem was seen as a complete revitalization of the series. For Persona 5, it sold way better than any other Persona game as far as I know, except that for many people, Persona 5 was actually seen as a critical disappointment to some extent, with the exception of some people like you, Donald.
Well, I think that Persona 5, like, it depends on who you ask, because I mean, I don't even know what the Metacritic is for Persona 5.
It's 90-something. It's crazy. But I think the public reaction was way soured.
Yeah.
It's mid-90s, but then between questionable things that were done with the localization and the streaming policy, that kind of soured a lot of people on the game.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have heard people be a little let down by it, but I've also heard a lot of people say it's their favorite RPG of all time. Mm-hmm. And I think even if they're, people value 4 higher than 5 or whatever, like, I think it's kind of weird to call Persona 5 a critical disappointment.
Not a critical disappointment. I would call to some segment of the audience that is not insignificant.
To a loud portion of the audience, it was.
But Fire Emblem Awakening is the same way, because Fire Emblem Awakening was very different from what came before, and I think that it probably, much like Persona 5, Awakening attracted a much wider audience and made that wider audience a lot happier. But there was still the smaller diehard audience that maybe wasn't as wowed by Awakening changes or Persona 5's changes.
Yeah, the people who played like GBA Fire Emblem or Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn, they're not big fans of Awakening. I know I've interacted a lot with them in recent months, but the larger fan base and the one that makes the most money is the ones that love Awakening, and we're seeing that now with Persona 5 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, that's Persona Q. I'm very curious to see how the two dancing games play out on PS4 and Vita, because it seems like they have two games coming out at the exact same time that are not mere versions of each other, because they have to have different song lists because it's two different games. And I'm very curious if the scale of these games is going to be smaller than Persona 4 Dancing All Night. I don't know. Spring 2018 for those. This one's probably going to be late 2018 or early 2019. US version will probably be 6 to 8 months later.
I think Persona Q was localization was I think really tight. Like I think it was like 3 months.
Oh wow.
No, it was like June in Japan, and then November for North America. Okay. I remember because that was the first time I actually had met John Harden, who used to do PR for Atlas. I had a question about Persona Q, especially coming off of some of the character design choices in Untold. I wanted to make sure they weren't, how does the term go, lewd the lolly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And no, they did not put Nanako in a dancer outfit, so...
Good. Resident Evil Revelations games, both coming to Switch later this year. It's download code. So it's going to receive a physical release in North America with Revelations 1 on a card and a download code for 2 in the box for $39.99, or they can be purchased separately on the eShop for $19.99 each. That's really weird to me, and I don't think I like that.
I think part of that is because the Resident Evil... I guess this might not be a good explanation, but I think this might be the explanation, is that this is kind of a similar release to Resident Evil Revelations coming out on disc on Xbox One and PS4 later this month. And Revelations 2 is already on both of those platforms, so I think maybe they're just marketing this as it being like the card is just Resident Evil Revelations 1, because that is in line with what is on PS4 and Xbox One.
Also, Revelations 1 is a huge game in terms of file size. Like, I think it was the biggest game on the 3DS prior to Bravely Default. And the HD versions, especially if they're doing 1080p graphics, are going to be way bigger. So it may just be a matter of they cannot fit both of those games on one Switch card, even at the highest capacity Nintendo offers right now, which I think is 32 gigs.
Yeah. I don't know. Revelations 1, if I remember it correctly, is basically the triple deluxe of the Resident Evil 4 and 5 and 6 series. And it seems weird to push these games 2 generations forward, because I remember this game doing well, Revelations 1, but I don't remember it doing that well.
I think it did really well.
Really? Okay.
I think it did really well, and well, there's some question about the numbers that Capcom is seeing on Switch as shipped versus sold, but they got paid, so why not dip another toe in and see how Resident Evil will perform on the platform, all right. Especially with one that started out on Nintendo systems anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's a good game. I don't know how excited I would be to replay Revelations, but I never played Revelations 2. So I might buy... also not really buying a lot of physical games, period, on Switch, I've realized. I bought some at launch, and that was it. And I got Cave Story. but I might just get Revelations 2 download when it comes out on Switch, and probably not bother with Revelations 1 unless, like, I don't know, someone gets me to come back for that online multiplayer. Was that multiplayer that was in 1 in 2 at all?
I think 2 was just an episodic straight story release.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I was curious.
Mm-hmm. Cherry Goblin asks in the chat, do you think Switch card capacity is a problem for third parties? I think capacity, no, for the most part, but cost, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Kirby 25th anniversary sale. It's happening in the eShop. It's a lot of 25% off sales. Some of the highlights: Return to Dreamland on Wii U, which is my favorite Kirby game, $14.99 from $20. You also have Kirby and the Amazing Mirror for $5.24, Kirby's Adventure for $3.74. The more interesting ones, I would say, are on 3DS, with Triple Deluxe for $14.99, which is a fine price for that game, and Kirby Planet Robobo for $29.99. And I really think it's time for that game to get a $20 sale.
Like, to get Nintendo selected like its cousin did? Or I guess its
Absolutely.
older brother. Yeah.
I think later this year, it should totally get a Nintendo Select. That and Paper Jam should definitely be in the next wave.
That Paper Jam, and you know what really needs one? Fire Emblem Awakening. We were talking about it earlier. That could be an easy way to get things out. And really, there's enough DLC in that game if you want to go for it, that dropping the base game to $20 at this point should probably be a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to look it up going back to Resident Evil Revelations. It looks like the 3DS game was 4 gigs, and I found the Xbox 360 file size is 7.8 gigs. So, I mean, that's big. Like,
I think that one was like 720 though. So if they're doing 1080,
okay, yeah,
that will increase in that.
Yeah, you're right. I guess, I mean, I think you can like pre-order on Xbox One, but I don't know if I care enough to do that much more digging about this. Either way, we're only getting Revelations 1 on a card, and we're not getting both of them on one.
So 2 generations later, I guess 1 console generation later, but kind of 1.5. You have Revelations 1 still coming out as a physical card release, which is impressive. I got my my birthday email from Nintendo. It's not for a little while, so it's not a big deal. But I got the birthday email for the 30% off, and I was hoping that for some reason I would be able to stack Kirby Planet Robobo's $29.99 sale with a 30% off and get it for $21.99, which would be a great deal for what some people are calling one of the best 3DS games, except, one, the birthday email did not actually grant me the discount. It does not stack with sale games. So if I want, I can get Paper Jam for like $28, or I can get what's the new one? Color Splash for maybe $44, which is okay, I guess. I don't know. That's just a little.
I would say avoid Color Splash, but that's just me.
Did you play it?
Yeah, because we got a physical copy for the review. So before I think Matt West was reviewing it. But before I sent it out for review, I played a couple hours of it, and I hate the combat in that game with a dying passion.
Okay, so it's not like
the passion of 1,000 suns. I don't know. It's hot.
So it's not like Sticker Star, where people called it like, oh, it's so horrible. But then you play it and it's like, no, it's disappointing, but it's still like a decent game for like 70 to 80% of it.
See, the thing that I had with Color Splash is it looks beautiful. I really like the world. The setup's really fun too. What bothered me most about it was the battles. Because it was like imagine if they made Sticker Star's battles feel more pointless.
Ugh.
Like that's what it was, and it was all like there were so many clicks involved. There was an option that I stumbled upon a little later on that like you can make it so you don't need to, because it's like the kind of thing where like you select a card, then you have to paint your card, then you need to tap your card again to put it back on the TV, and then you need to flick it. Like, and that would be like, and you hit them with a hammer once.
Because I just abuse the roulette mode for the battles because that would give me a full card all the time anyway, and I was able to do the battles without using the touchscreen at all. Like you could button control the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. I have a theory about intelligence systems that they've essentially pulled the telltale, where they have so many projects going on at once, where a lot of their projects have started suffering because their attention is divided between so many different games.
I just think Color Splash sucks.
There you go. Color Splash is a bad game. Maybe I won't get it.
Well, I think the problem with Color Splash is maybe not like their attention is spread too thin, but that like they have this mindset of what a Paper Mario game should be, and they keep on
wrong.
yeah, but like they keep on barking up this tree, and like having read interviews of how they're like, this is why we did this. I'm like, okay, like you presented a case. I don't think it's a strong or compelling one, but like I understand why you made Sticker Star, why you made Color Splash. It's just that I don't like either of those games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of weird that I think, like, I'm looking at Mario and Rabbids, and that has the potential to be probably my favorite Mario RPG of the past decade. Just because, like, I don't know, it's not just the same shit over and over again, and it's not like becoming this weird adventure game amalgam that makes you play interminable battles all the time.
It's been rough goings since Bowser's Inside Story, not including Bowser's Inside Story, but all the games since then.
Yeah, I mean, Bowser's Inside Story is a fantastic game, and I still, well, Paper Jam, like I think I accept that Paper Jam is mediocre, but I went in there with basically no expectations and came away like I dropped like 20, 30 hours in that game and had a good time. But I wouldn't call Paper Jam like amazing. It was fun. It was competent.
Mm-hmm. Ms. K3 agrees with you. He says Paper Jam is the better video game.
Yeah, it is. Although it doesn't look as good. Color Splash looks beautiful. I wish they would make a good game with Color Splash's art style.
It sounds like it's a good game. Like it sounds like it's almost there, except for the combat.
I mean, that's because those people making Paper Mario games, guess what? They're pretty good at making video games. They're just making bad video games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Donald, tell me about this 2K business.
Okay, so 2K had their earnings call today, or I guess Take-Two Interactive, their parent company, and they put out their release slate for basically the next calendar year, because it goes to Red Dead Redemption 2. One thing that came out, or two things that came out from that. One, the WWE game, which originally we thought was going to come out day and date with the PS4 and Xbox One versions on Switch, that is going to be later in the fall, so probably early November maybe, which not as bad as the PC version if they're doing that, but still a bit of a bummer. The other thing is that the NBA 2K18 is going to come out on Switch digitally the same day as the PS4 and Xbox One games do, September 19th, but the physical version is going to be later in the fall.
Okay.
So for, I don't know if it's a matter of, cost of getting it onto a Switch card between now and end of, September 19th or 15th, because they do the 4-day early pre-orders. But yeah, for whatever reason, the only way to get NBA digital or get on Switch on launch day for the rest of the world is going to be digitally.
Yeah, like that's disappointing. I can kind of understand why it happened. Because Switch cards are kind of a great unknown to a lot of companies right now. And the fact of the matter is that the cards are like more difficult to produce than discs. Like discs there's kind of a proven system for making those, and that's pretty easy to do. With cards, like they're proprietary, you have to go through Nintendo. It takes time, et cetera, like more costly. And I don't know. Like I guess if like that's the reason for it, which I assume it is, like I understand, but it just sucks because I was kind of like, because I don't know how long I'm gonna play the NBA game. I didn't really want to go digital. So I think I like if this came out physical in September, I would probably buy it day one. If it's digital, I don't think I'm getting it right away. I think I might hold out until the physical release.
Yeah, I'm definitely holding out, but that's because even with the Canadian dollar improving, it's still probably going to be $75 digitally, and I'm getting the physical for $50.
Yeah, wait for that.
Cool. It's kind of a shame that it's launching digitally because they pushed NBA 2K18 as one of the main Switch games. Like it helped carry the vision of the Switch.
Yeah,
Just
I mean
all
it's
those
still
people-
coming out
Yeah.
and just digitally, which I mean that means the lack of visibility in stores, et cetera, et cetera. In my case, like I don't have the ability to sell it back if I don't get that into the basketball game.
Mhm.
But it does. I mean, from what I've heard, like this isn't like like they're shitting out a port. Like this is, as far as I know, like the main 2K team is working on specifically on the Switch version. I mean, as well as with the other versions. Like it should be a decent, maybe good version of what has been the best basketball game, bar none, for a number of years.
All I'll say is that, do you guys know that feeling when you think about Nintendo third-party support, and it's this like very slight, vague feeling in your gut that's generally negative in nature?
You think what's the other shoe that's going to drop for this thing?
Yeah, like WWE not coming out day and date.
My gut that spoke to me very directly with the Wii U and in the early goings of the 3DS is still speaking to me on the Switch, that third-party support on the Switch is not going to be as good as PS4 and Xbox One, and it never will be. And it's this very slightly gross feeling in my chest that I don't like, but I'm starting to just swallow it down at this point.
I don't think that the book has been written on what third-party support will be on the Switch. I mean, a lot of people keep on saying stuff about how like, oh, all these companies should have been on board day one. Like, look at the Switch; it's almost at 5 million units in like 4 months, and like that is very good. But if you're a third-party company, and this probably it's not just on your Capcoms, on your 2Ks, on your EAs, Ubisoft's, Activisions. It's not all on them. It's also a lot on Nintendo too, because it's the way they've always acted towards third parties and how third parties have acted towards them. It takes two to make a shitty third-party situation. And I think you did have a lot of people kind of reticent. I mean, I'm sure Nintendo extended olive branches trying to get what they could. I mean, look at like Mario and Rabbids, like NBA 2K. Like, yeah, this is unfortunate with the physical version, but like 2K clearly was brought on board on the earlier side to make the basketball game for it.
And Skyrim from Bethesda,
Although weirdly enough, Skyrim from Bethesda is a Nintendo game right now because Nintendo's publishing that, I think, worldwide.
Yeah.
But like with third-party support, I think that the more interesting thing and what might make hopefully that feeling in your gut maybe be less of an issue. I don't think it'll ever totally go away because I don't think we're ever going to be in total parity between Switch and PS4 and Xbox One. But I think that 2018, if people come out, if third parties come out then and give like a more earnest try than they're giving now, then that'll be the proving ground. Because right now, like Nintendo has done their part. The system is selling, first party lineup strong. Now the third parties need to show up and deliver, and the ones that have already announced stuff, follow through with that. And I don't know, try to get to a point, and I'm not blaming the companies for doing this, but get to a point so we don't have Rhyme coming to Switch 3 months later. So we don't have WWE coming out sometime after the release of it on PS4 and Xbox One. So we don't have Resident Evil Revelations coming out 3 months later or whatever after it comes out on PS4 and Xbox One. Like, that's the kind of thing that will always kind of put that Switch version as second fiddle, even if there's kind of this big appeal towards being able to play it everywhere you go, which I think is probably part of the reason why Nintendo had that element of the system and is trumpeting it, because you might get people waiting for these Switch versions of games. Like I've kind of gotten to that point where with Rime is a game that I was looking forward to. I'm waiting for the Switch version, whenever that will come. I think right now we're looking at 3 months since it came out on other platforms. Even Disney Afternoon Collection, that's a game that isn't announced for Switch, probably isn't coming to Switch, but I'm very stubborn and I'm not buying that on other platforms because I'm like, well, the Switch version comes out, I'd rather play it there.
Ms. K3 notes, still waiting for Yuka.
Yeah. And I actually think with Yooka-Laylee, because I had that article kind of, I don't know, was it sometime in July, where I went back and kind of tried to track down information on some of those games that were in that Nindie Direct back right before the Switch launched. And I think what happened with Yooka-Laylee is that it came out and people were mad. So I think that Switch version has been kind of held up a little bit because they're making the game that, like, the game came out, a lot of people were mad about it, there were issues, people were unhappy, and that Switch version will hopefully benefit for it, and that when it comes out, it will be a better game. I think that if Yooka-Laylee came out in April and was like, oh, it's perfect, everybody loves it, I think that Switch version would have been out by now. But I think that because there were other problems, because they kind of don't have that, there isn't necessarily like, oh, you need to get this game out right now. You can kind of sit on it, and hopefully when Yooka-Laylee hits Switch, it'll be a better game than it was when it hit other platforms.
And I think the portability factor and the fact that they have to use cards for it, because we've seen what happens when you use discs on a portable system, it's a nightmare. I think part of that is part of the issue as to why sometimes these things will happen with games getting delayed. Mm-hmm.
I think there's an interesting parallel to be made. Dale points out that Yooka-Laylee got a light case of Mighty Number 9. I think Mighty Number 9 can be compared unfavorably to Shovel Knight in the same way that Yooka-Laylee can be compared unfavorably to the Crash Bandicoot trilogy, and that you have.
But Crash Bandicoot wasn't a crowdfunded game.
That's true. I mean that part it doesn't compare favorably, but I think in the case of Crash Bandicoot, it remade those games. Vicarious Visions remade those games as you remember playing the original Crash Bandicoot back in the day. It didn't actually make Crash Bandicoot 1 again exactly as it existed. In the same way that called Shovel Knight made the 2D platformer as you remember it, not as those games actually hold up today. And Mighty Number 9, and although in that case it was just a
I was gonna say like Mighty Number 9 was just a piece of shit.
Yeah, I never played it.
I mean, the crazy thing with Yooka-Laylee is that I looked into a lot of the criticism of it, and like I'm like, that probably would suck, but I'll probably still buy it when it comes to Switch.
It's okay. I played that. They made a 3 and 64 platformer.
And like that's the thing is like. I might come away from that game being like, well, that wasn't that good, but like I like those games growing up, so I want to play that, even if like I kind of know that I might go into it and come away with it being like, why did I spend my time on that? I do a Cherry Goblin in the chat said, nothing's changed with Western third parties. Doesn't matter how popular Switch is, and I say to that, like, give it a year, then we'll know. See how FIFA does. See how NBA does. Weird that, everybody was crapping on EA for FIFA and being like, hey, 2K is doing it right. But unless EA announces something tomorrow saying that FIFA's not going to have a physical release on day and date, FIFA's going to have a physical release day and date. So,
and EA already had their earnings call, so I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Also, according to a Twitter poll, 62% of people surveyed are on Team Jared when it comes to that SNES Classic Battle Royale. There is a poll on our Twitter page right now. You can go vote.
I'm gonna go vote. Dude, I'm on Team Jared.
It's very interesting. Yooka-Laylee is an N64 3D platformer that starts relatively strong and then shits the bed halfway through. And you know what other games do that? every single 3D platformer from the N64 era has an extremely strong opening and then completely shits the bed at the 50% mark. Banjo-Kazooie 1, Banjo-Tooie, and Donkey Kong 64, although that game was slightly rougher. And you know what else? Mario 64, more than you want to believe.
That's why you can go beat the game when you're just over the 50% mark.
I think Mario 64 is still a fantastic game. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I think the hard levels in Mario 64 aged way worse than the easy levels in Mario 64.
I mean, I think they're just a little bit precision in the N64 era. I guess maybe just precision has evolved a whole lot in 20 years.
Did you just tell him to get good?
Well, no. It's more that, I mean, I guess yes, a little bit. But like, with those early 3D games, being precise was really hard in some cases, and that was just like a limitation of the game design. Whereas now, like, things make more sense as 3D graphics have evolved. But I don't know. Mario 64 works best as a sandbox game, and those early levels in that game are sandbox levels, so that's where it works best. And then when you get to okay, you need to do all these crazy jumps real fast, that's not a sandbox game as much.
I didn't have a problem with the jumps in that game. It's the flying that really irked me. I think the best I'll ever do...
The flying does kind of suck.
Yeah. The best I will ever do without save states of some sort is 118 stars, because the 2 wing cap required stars that are special, I can't do them.
Because there's that one when you look up in the light in the
where you get in the stage where you activate the wing cap blocks, and then there's the second one that's extra. It's right next to Rainbow Ride, or just across the hallway.
Okay, yeah, that one's a pain in the ass. The first one, what was it, when it 2 years ago, I played a bunch of Mario 64, and that first wing cap thing was way more frustrating than I remember. I did do the first one. I did not do the second one.
And Ms. K3 says Banjo 1 is perfect. I say the first half of that game is great. The second half of that game, not so much.
I think both of those Banjo games are pretty good.
Sure. And then the platforming is for that era, it's the peak of that era's platforming. I just think a lot of N64 platformers, as you said, struggled when it came to actual precision platforming.
Yeah.
Which is why I say games falter in their latter half. Granted, I played those games more as an adult than I played them when I was 12, 13, 14, which means that I was kind of using more modern standards to approach those games. I find the first level in Mario 64 impeccably designed thing. I find Peach's Castle to be an impeccably designed sandbox for that era. But when you get into the tick-tock clock stuff in 64 and the water level, you get nauseated and the camera starts wonking out on me. The N64 controller that much in the modern times. I struggle with it. Maybe I need to get good, but I'm good at plenty of other games. I mean, Dark Souls isn't necessarily the hardest game ever, but I've beaten 5 of those. It's just this that I can't deal with.
I think, with Mario 64, the camera stuff is annoying, but when you compare it to any camera that followed it for a decade, it's amazing. That they did it the first fucking time and almost got it, and got it basically as good as anyone else could do it for almost a decade.
Cherry Goblin says Super Mario Galaxy 2 over Mario 64, and adds, if you really think about it, N64 games are crap, and I wouldn't go that far.
Galaxy 2 got brought up, didn't it? Galaxy 2, one of my least favorite 3D Mario games by a large margin.
Yeah, I actually compare that game quite negatively to Pokemon Black and White 2, and that it's a sequel to a game that already did it almost perfectly, in my opinion. And it's it's the sequel, so the spirit's not there as much.
I wish, thinking about it, and having revisited Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2 in the past couple of years, I wish that like Galaxy 2 was just a DLC pack for Galaxy 1. Because I think part of that is that like I played the crap out of Galaxy. Like I think I got like because you could play through that as Mario and then play through it as Luigi. And it was like 242 stars. I got all that shit. Got to Galaxy 2 and I got to a point where I was like, oh, I think I'd rather just go back and like play Mario 64 and Galaxy 1. Like I don't need like the Yoshi was cool. Some of the new power-ups were fun, but like if that was just like a 30-star expansion to the first Galaxy, I probably would have been a lot happier. And also, yes, the hub world in Galaxy 1 added way more than I ever thought it would compared to like the stupid Mario ship face that's in Galaxy 2.
Ms. K3 says he likes Galaxy 1 better. I continue to think that 3D Land is the peak of Mario 3D platforming.
I mean, I think Mario 64 is the best.
Okay. I guess that means that there's a lot of good Mario 3D platforming games.
And whenever I get to the point, whenever like I get boxed into a corner and have to crap on Galaxy 2, like Galaxy 2 is still an incredible game. It's just that I like Galaxy 1, 64, 3D Land, probably even 3D World more than it. Sunshine. I think I like the spirit of Sunshine more than Galaxy 2. I don't know if I think Sunshine is that much of a better game.
Okay. 3D World, I need to replay because I did not enjoy 3D World so much when I played it the first time, and I did not remotely see what anyone else saw in it because, frankly, I thought that game just felt wrong to play to me. Like the Mario 3D platforming just felt off to me in a way that it did not feel for any other game in that series. I don't think it's just 3D Land, but better. I think it's a completely different game.
I mean, it's
the same game in the bad way.
It's a multiplayer game. Like that's the thing about 3D World that I think kind of bugs me is that it's designed to be a multiplayer game, and when you're playing it in multiplayer, if you get the right group together, that's amazing. Like that game, like. I mean, I think that the new Super Mario Brothers Wii and U, the multiplayer stuff there is really fun, and I think 3D World takes what worked about that and makes it even better. Like the catsuit's great, but when you're playing it through it in single player, like the stages are like weirdly big because they're meant to hold 4 people, and that's just something that like kind of bothered me as I worked my way through that game. And it is like that's a fantastic game, but it's just that like it's made to be a multiplayer game, not a single-player game.
Okay. We have a couple last-minute things to talk about. One, Neil, you played Layton's Mystery Journey, Catriel and the Millionaire's Conspiracy on mobile, which is the game that's coming to 3DS later this year and just dropped on mobile a week or two ago.
Yes. So I played through the new Layton game, and I was very excited to do so. I think I reviewed Layton 2 and 3, maybe 4. I don't know. I know I definitely reviewed 2, the Diabolical Box. But I have played every Layton game except for the Phoenix Bright crossover, and I never finished Asmon Legacy, the most recent one. But I love those games. I really enjoyed them over the years, and playing Layton's Mystery Journey, I was excited to jump back into it, and for most of that game, or I guess most of what was in that game, I really enjoyed. Like the puzzles are fun. I think that the puzzles seem to skew a little easier, which might be because they are going for a broader audience with it having being on mobile. It's on mobile now worldwide. It's on 3DS in Japan right now, and it will be coming to 3DS in like I think October is what they were saying.
Yeah.
And like it's got the puzzles that you would expect from a Layton game, and it has some new things where like Pick-a-Rats, for example, now go down. You can go down 4 times instead of or like lose 4 wrong answers as opposed to losing 2. There's new mini games. Like there's one where you have to like plan routes for people, which I had some fun with. But the structure of the game really bugs me. So instead of having like in this case, Layton's daughter strolling up in like some weird town and being like, okay, this guy says he's a vampire for some reason, or like, look, like my ward, I got a letter from his future self telling me I need to come here, and this friggin' time machine. Like, instead of having those bonkers setups, the game is split into 12 distinct cases, which vary in length. Like, I think I finished one of them in like a half hour, maybe less. It was like lunch at work. I started a case and finished it. It was like, okay, that wasn't that long. I still had time left during my lunch hour. But so there's these 12 cases that are like kind of like a lot more tongue-in-cheek and goofy than Layton usually is, because Layton, there's a real earnestness about the story in those games, that even as like there's a puzzle where you put together a casino or like a slot machine as a gun, and like then Layton shoots a slot machine like a gun, it's still kind of played straight. And I felt that a lot of the stuff in Layton's mystery journey, especially early on, was just like played to be like broad goofiness. And there is a payoff. Like, they do have like the kind of like overwrought, emotionally resonant thing near the end, and the whole millionaires conspiracy plays into it. There's like this group of, yeah, like I think it's like they're the dragons of London, and they have a conspiracy. Guess what? Play the game to find out what it is. But just that case structure kind of lost me at a certain point, because I would rather have them from the word go building up this millionaire's conspiracy or whatever the overriding plot is, because by the time they get to a point where they are building it up, I like it was the back half of the game. And the characters just seem like a lot of them are like ripping off archetypes that were in previous Layton games. They didn't feel terribly original. Probably the best thing is that for some reason there's a dog that can talk. And like he talks like you might expect Detective Pikachu to talk like. Not Danny DeVito, but like it was like generic voice.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. Like, I enjoyed it. It's a Layton game, but I don't think it's a top-tier Layton game. I would probably put it on the level of Miracle Mask, which I thought was one of the worst Layton games that I played.
Was Miracle Mask 6 or 5?
That was 5.
5.
I never
was the first 3DS one.
Yeah, I'll also point out that similarly, all the as-ran stuff in 5 and 6 kind of lost me as well. Like, It pisses me off because I feel like a future Layton's Mystery Journey game, like I like the character of Catriel, like Layton's daughter, like I guess to kind of set up at the start of the game, like we don't know where Professor Layton is. Like, I want to know where Professor Layton is. Let's get to that. Like, what's Luke up to? Like, you had this really cool universe, and it seems like they ignored most of it except for the periphery stuff. Like Granny Riddleton shows up again, because of course she would.
I call the brisker pace probably. It sounds like it has a brisker pace, which I enjoy because I played Miracle Mask and the first game, and those are the only 2 games in the series I've played to some extent. And I dropped Miracle Mask very quickly because Layton games have a tendency to get long-winded. That kind of lose me because sometimes I just want to get to the puzzles, and it sounds like this game does a little more of that.
Yeah, like I think if you don't really care that much about the story and you just want raw puzzles, this might be one to pick up, because it is. I mean, and it depends on like how you play games. Like I think if I had my druthers, I probably would have waited till 3DS, but I is really curious and wanted to see how it worked on mobile. And it works totally fine on mobile. It's just more how I play games more is I'd rather play this game on 3DS. I think that the translation to mobile is almost perfect. There's weirdness with saving because it still like saves like Layton games do, where like you have to manually save it. I wish they just had an autosave for mobile, because I'm not like I deliberately did it because I didn't want to lose progress, but like it's not really intuitive to be playing a game on your phone and then having to save it every time you back out of it, because like how I've ever played mobile games is, okay, I'm doing it. Okay, I got to back out of it. Like I'm getting a phone call or whatever, or like I have to pay attention. So I can't play this game and ignore you. But yeah.
Cool.
And it's I guess the pricing might be worth pointing out. It's $16. and you get the whole game. There is DLC that you get new outfits and puzzles, and I have a feeling. So I kind of added. I have a review up on the site, and I added a little addendum that was kind of like a note on the price and the 3DS and the mobile version. I think that the 3DS version will probably be like $30, but it will include all the DLC. I'm not 100% sure how it works in Japan, but a lot of quotes from executives at Level 5 seem to make it that it's not like, you know, the mobile version is going to be $16 and then the 3DS version is going to be $40 for some reason. I think that the prices are going to make sense more, and I think there is about, you know, $15 worth of DLC that you can get. So if you just have the 3DS version be $30 and include all the DLC, that's probably totally fine.
Or it's not great, but it's enough to make it so that the people buying it probably won't be that mad.
Yeah. I mean, not that, like, I'm not gonna. I mean, like, you can get a dress that makes her look like Luke. Cool.
That's cute.
It's very cute, and then there's puzzles attached to each of those that you can get. I've not gotten any of the DLC though, so I can't really speak to its quality.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm checking the because like the import sites are selling the physical copies of the 3DS game, because that got a physical release in Japan. I don't think it's going to get that here, just because if Nintendo was still publishing it, I think it would. But this seems like something that would that's not going to end up getting physical release because Level 5 doesn't have the capacity for it.
They are publishing Yokai Watch 2 Psychic Spectres.
They are? I thought that was Nintendo.
That is Level 5. So when it was announced, Nintendo's name was on the box art. Then I think around E3, that box art changed, and it now says Level 5 and does not say Nintendo. And like I'm like 99% sure that Level 5 is publishing Yokai Watch 2 Psychic Spectres.
Huh.
I mean, they
check the game page.
Yeah, they are publishing Layton's Mystery Journey as well. Nintendo's not involved with it. I don't know if they've confirmed a physical release, but I think it's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would also be an easy way to make like the $16 versus $30 or whatever a little more justifiable, because you're getting a physical case and maybe there's a manual in it. Who knows?
Right. I bet we're getting Yokai Watch 3 next year, and then no Yokai Watch games that come after it.
I wish I knew how Yokai Watch was doing, because I think the TV show is still airing on Disney XD.
And Netflix.
Yeah.
Also, the Nintendo game page for it, now granted this could be out of date, Nintendo doesn't update these very often, but it still shows Nintendo as the publisher for Yokai Watch Psychic Spectres.
All right, so we'll see. Yokai Watch 1, as I recall, did okay, but underwhelming. And then Yokai Watch 2, full question mark. I have no clue how that game would have done.
I'm guessing I'm thinking from the reaction, it didn't do very well. It did well enough to probably cover its cost, but that's it. And the fact that we're getting, there's 3 major 3DS games in September now coming from Nintendo, because they're publishing Monster Hunter Stories and
that is
Metroid.
Yokai Watch, maybe, you know what? Because I think Monster Hunter Stories box art also just says Capcom and doesn't say Nintendo, but Nintendo is publishing that in America and Europe. So maybe they just updated the box art for Yokai Watch 2 to not have their name on it and just have Level 5, but they are still handling the publishing duties. That could be the case. So. But yeah, I did. I have confirmed. I think, I don't know if it was 100% confirmed or not, but yes, Nintendo in America and Europe is publishing Monster Hunter Stories. Capcom, it doesn't have that much to do with it, other than being like, sure, Nintendo, do this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a demo for that coming out next week.
Yep.
I'll play that.
I sure hope it's good. I'm like 60% confident it's great, and like another 60% confident that it's going to be like Yokai Watch 1, and everyone's going to be like, oh, I guess this is okay.
Yeah.
I think we actually have a review of the Japanese version on the website from when it came out in Japan a couple years ago.
If I remember that, I don't know. Like when Monster Hunter Stories was first revealed, I was like, "This looks amazing," and I think I remember hearing like, "It's not that it's bad; it's just not amazing."
Mm.
But I don't like. I mean, that's the kind of thing. Like maybe it'll scratch the Monster Hunter itch that I want. Like, you know what? Like people crapped on Fire Emblem Heroes probably for good reason, but I had a really good month or two with that game. People might crap on Monster Hunter Stories for potentially a good reason, but I might have a good month or two with that game.
All right. So there you go, Monster Hunter Stories. There's one other game I kind of wanted to touch on a teensy tiny bit, and that is that we know nothing about Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon yet, and it is August.
Which, I mean, what this time last year we knew like 90% of all the new Pokemon.
Yeah,
I think at this point we were only at about 50, but we got the other 40% all by the time the game came out.
Like I would love to just see like the complete opposite happen with what happened with Sun and Moon, where like we basically like the game came out, and if you paid attention, which I'm glad I didn't, but I did look back to see like what you guys bitched about. They showed off like the whole game.
Yeah.
Although
the whole game.
Although I think
like I would love if like Nintendo and the Pokemon Company was just like, all right, for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, let's not say a goddamn thing about the game other than it
radio
exists.
silence.
Which I know isn't the case. Like there will be previews coming out in like September or October, I'm sure. I would love to go hands on with it before it comes out. Like hopefully we'll get the chance. I don't know, but like that would be so funny if they're just like, and it's out now.
And I think they've done this before.
We don't even know.
And they've done this before with sequels. When they did Black and White 2, I think it got announced in January for a June release in Japan, and then they basically said nothing for 2 months. So
I remember Pokemon Black and White 2 very intimately because it was right after I joined the site, and I have never covered a game or anything in my several years of writing as I have Pokemon Black and White 2. And Neil, you remember that.
I do remember that.
I wrote like
nuts.
6,000 words of previews just to get that review copy.
Yep.
And then I did ultimately get it. But what I remember very intimately about Black and White 2 is that was the first game in the Pokemon series where they told you everything about it before it came out. And
I think we knew. I recall knowing a lot about Black and actually no. You know why I knew a lot about Black and White? Because it was already out in Japan before it came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of hard to. With Pokemon games up until recently, it's hard to totally judge did they tell us everything or did we just know everything because it was out in Japan for like a year before?
Mm-hmm. X and Y, they really told us everything. I think it was 40 of the 70 Pokemon that they told us. And I think it might have been even worse.
That's why
I think they announced it in January, and then they didn't say another thing really about it until March or April.
Mm-hmm.
So we may be on another one of those.
Yeah.
Because I think you're right that they definitely gave away too much. Like they gave away the final forms of the starters. They never do that.
Yeah.
Or they've never done that before.
So as we are talking about like when will we next hear about Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, I do feel like we're getting to a point where countdown to next direct is going to start happening.
It's in your gut. You can feel the tingles.
Well, it's also like Splatoon 2 is out now. Like that was like Nintendo doesn't really have. I mean, Mario and Rabbids is all Ubisoft. So I mean, while Nintendo will probably, I'm sure. I mean, Mario is involved. They will do some kind of promotion for that. I would assume
that could get a direct. That's not crazy.
Yeah. Like Nintendo and Ubisoft teaming up for it. Like I mean, they've done third-party directs in Japan. Have they done any in America? I don't think so. But anyway, like as far as like a bigger like the direct that we got, back in April, the digital event, like something like that,
I think the last one we had, I think after E3, the next one we had was September 1st last year. So
Yeah.
and that would be right in the wheelhouse for when you'd want to pimp Mario and Rabbids. So maybe something in like 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, I could see like last full week of August possibly getting a direct. Laying out, or going into Mario and Rabbids, doing stuff on Pokken, Fire Emblem Warriors release date, showing off something else from Odyssey. Metroid will be out soon. Monster Hunter will be out soon. Like, you have a lot of games that are known commodities, and then you can kind of fill in the gaps, announce release dates for some third parties, follow that same format as the April Direct, and then maybe have some surprises for November and December. Not saying anything big. Like, well, I still think that there is a non-zero chance that Smash Brothers could come out in November. I think it's like a 0.00001% chance. I feel like there's got to be something else for Switch in November, but maybe that's Skyrim and Xenoblade. I don't know.
And this, I mean, the 3DS, we have Ultra Sun and Moon with fixed dates, but we don't have a date for anything after Odyssey on the Switch.
Yeah. We have we know of games coming out then, but yeah, I mean, I feel like at this point, Nintendo's kind of Switch-wise, like they are planning up until Odyssey, and then after that, it's almost like they kind of did the same thing with Splatoon 2, where back in that like April Direct, they kind of showed everything up until Splatoon 2. Now we're past Splatoon 2, and they'll probably have something, reaffirming everything going up until Odyssey, and then starting to unveil what's after Odyssey up until January or something. Mm-hmm. And the second Zelda DLC, Dale just pointed that out in the chat. That would probably be a November thing as well. Like maybe they're fine for November with just what they've got. It's just that I feel like, Odyssey's absolute money, but like maybe it's just a changing tide of how they're structuring their holidays, and it's weird to me right now.
Games are different now than they were even 2-3 years ago. The biggest games this year, I would say, outside of Mario, came out in the first 3 months of the year. And it happened to some extent last year, too. And it seems like games are just coming out all the time. And there will still be a summer, the way summer is for movies. We'll still get some of that in the fall. Movies coming out happen all around the year now in the same way that the best games are coming out.
Yeah.
Every single month of the year. Yeah. All right. We're going a little long. So how about a tight minute or two on Overcooked before we close on Pikmin?
Okay, sorry, I was checking my phone. I apologize. I'm playing some Layton puzzles now.
I do it too. Okay.
Overcooked is really cool. It's a dopey cooking game where you have a timer and you have to work with up to 3 other people to try to put together ingredients and everything in like absolute bonkers situations. Like at first, just a normal kitchen, then you'll have one that's like on a ship where things go back and forth. You'll be on like a car that then like you'll be working on like the in a food truck, and then the food truck will break in half, or maybe you're on like in a glacier and everything's all slipping around and you could fall into the water, or like there's lava everywhere, or you're in space. There's a lot of ridiculous situations in that game, and I really enjoy it. I have found that in the multiplayer, it's kind of hard to get people to stick around because that game's incredibly stressful. It's not really that much of a party game. Like, you need to get people that want to get good at this game and want to play this game, because just throwing people in being like, I'll play this cooking game, like there's a ticking clock, things can go on fire, like it's nuts. The one thing with Overcooked on Switch that I have been kind of, I guess, really blown away by, like I've heard it came out last year on a lot of other systems, and people loved it, and I assumed that, like I was kind of waiting to play it, and then heard it got announced for Switch, and I was like, okay, I'll wait for it to come to Switch. The multiplayer stuff is fun. I haven't gotten as deep into that, mainly because I play it with people and then they get stressed out and stop playing. So for the purposes of the review, I wound up playing a lot more single player, kind of by necessity. But I kind of love the single player. In that, you just switch between two different chefs, and like you basically like we'll set up one to chop something, then switch to the other one to then prepare something else. And there's a lot of like kind of like strategic movement and like managing like who's doing what, so that way you can make the most efficient use of your time. And there's something about that that's really clicking with me. And I worked my way through the main story. There's DLC stuff there too, like kind of mini campaigns. And I've been going through and getting 3 stars on every level in single player. I did not expect that to happen. I did not expect to be this into the single player mode of a game. When I first tried the single player mode when it came out, I hated it. And now it's might be my favorite part of the game.
Nice. It supposedly doesn't run great.
It runs fine for me. So I've been digging into this a little bit. The frame rate for me, like I compared what was running on my Switch to like footage of like the PS4 version, and it looks like to me on my Switch and my setup and everything, it's like the PS4 version is running at like 30 frames per second. Like maybe this is like 25 frames per second, but it's consistent. Apparently, other people are having issues where it's will be running at that lower frame rate, and then when there's a lot of stuff going on screen, it will slow down to like 15 frames per second. Don't really know what's going on there, but from my experiences with it, it worked totally fine. And it was noticeable once I saw what it looked like on other systems, but up until that point, it just like it worked. I didn't have any issues with it.
Got it. Okay. It is we got one more thing to talk about. We will touch on Hey Pikmin. Talked about it last week. Neil, where are you in Hey Pikmin? What do you think?
I have a sealed copy of Hey Pikmin that I have not opened yet. Because I've been working on the Layton review, the Overcooked review, while playing Splatoon 2.
Got it. Okay. Well,
I'm excited. I'm excited to play it. I liked the demo that I've played. So you finished it though.
I finished it. There's the segue. I beat Hey Pikmin over a few days. I got it for $6 again during the Prime era. I had no anticipation of buying it, because I looked at the trailers and I was like, this looks okay, but it's also by Arzest, who kind of left me high and dry on Yoshi's New Island just a little bit. And Hey Pikmin, it didn't look that great to me, and it didn't, like, the idea was kind of solid, but I didn't have confidence in the level design. And I played it over the course of a few days. It took me about 8 and change hours to beat it, and they totally made a Pikmin 2D platformer that plays a lot like Pikmin and a lot like Yoshi's Island, and it's really good, and I would call it the best Arzest Artoon game that I've played, which includes Yoshi's Island DS.
You were just making me more happy that I bought this game, because I first played this back at, there was like a 2DS XL event in New York back in like May that I went to, and I played a demo there, and I was kind of like, like it's not terrible, but I don't know if I care. And then I talked to Don Koopman, who I think he reviewed it for Game Explain, I think. So go watch that video. I'm sure his review is good. And he loved it. Like, I was talking to him about it and was like, really? Like, didn't seem like it was going to be that great, and he was really digging it. And then Perry wrote the review for us, and I talked to him about it, and he was really digging it too. So then I finally was like, all right, I'll download the demo that's on the eShop. And I played that, and I'm like, hey, you know what? This demo was pretty good. Like the early levels sucked, but that later one that they had in there was real fun. And then I bought it, and I haven't had the time to play it yet. But hearing you also say good things about it, I'm excited to play it. I don't think it's going to be, some groundbreaking game of the year contender, but that's not really what I want from it. I just want to like have the feeling of playing Pikmin, and it's okay that it's a side scroller, maybe a little uninspired in its own weird way. It looks like there's goofy dialogue. Like in one of those demo levels, I found a Link's Awakening DX Game Boy cartridge as a treasure, and I love Chibi Robo Ziplash, so I'm a sucker for that kind of nonsense.
If you love Chibi Robo Ziplash, you're going to get some similar feelings from this game, but it's a much better constructed video game than Chibi Robo Ziplash was. And then, like, for anything you can say, Flash, it had a leveling system that really got grating after a bit. And I would say, Hey Pikmin is a Yoshi's Island game that is a little more slower and a little more deliberate, but it's also designed that way. Totally fun. It totally catches the spirit of Pikmin. And what a lot of Arzest Artoon games failed at, that this game does not, is that a lot of Arzest games and Artoon games any heart of any kind, and it felt like they were making games on contract to a certain
like
extent.
basically a paint by number. Like that's what New Island felt like. I don't think New Island was terrible. It was just
okay.
like they riffed on Yoshi's Island and didn't really bring that much. They were like, we have big eggs now, and you're like, what the fuck's the point of that?
No one asked for them. They just asked for a good Yoshi's Island sequel.
And like you didn't really achieve it. It's okay. Like I don't regret playing Yoshi's New Island. I will never play it again.
This game is the first Arzest game I would say that actually has a heart to it, and a real heart. And I had quite a bit of fun. The collecting is pretty fun. The it's the faux platforming is pretty fun. The boss fights are great. The game sounds nice. It looks decent. It runs even like not great on new 3DS, but that's because of how much stuff is on screen at the same time. If there's one criticism I have of the game, it's that it goes on for too long, and some of the levels that it expects to be part of the main campaign, there's 10-ish worlds in the game, which is not a spoiler. I'm not going to say the exact number, but I'm going to say there's 10-ish worlds in the game. What they should have done is ended it at 6 and given you like 2 or 3 bonus ones, and instead it sort of makes you play all of them before getting to the credits, and the gameplay is a little too samey sometimes to justify the 40 or 50 levels that are in the game that you have to beat in order to beat it. But other than that, like I think in my tweet, I semi-tongue-in-cheek called it 7.8 out of 10, best Arzest game. And I kind of stand by that. It's like it's a 7.8, but it's a good 7.8. There's your Hey Pikmin. It's a fun video game. It'll do. There you go. All right. That's a Nintendo News Report for this week. Thank you very much for watching NintendoWorldReport.com, Patreon.com/NWR to support the website that supports the show. And then also you can follow us at Enron10, Nick, at NFR Podcast if you want to hear Donald on another podcast, at Kulafia. That's our show. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.